Hello everyone, this is Arif and welcome on board for another lecture of CIA Part 3. It is Unit 4, Business Processes and Data Analytics. This is my brief introduction, and if you have that curiosity to look at that what is my professional background, what qualification do I hold, you can pause this slide and you can read it yourself. This is a snapshot of the entire CIA Part 3 in which we have already covered from Unit 1 to Unit 3, and today our unit of discussion is Unit 4, which comprises of around 7% of the entire syllabus. And if you divide all the units within that section of business acumen, which overall covers that 5% of the entire syllabus, there might be a possibility that 7 MCQs come from this section. There is no hard and fast rule. They might just bring 1 or 2 MCQs from this and may balance the remaining question from the other units. But just to give you a rough idea that how much you should feel in terms of your achievement when you cover this unit. So overall, in the CIA Part 3, we have 4 domains: business acumen, which comprises of 35% of the syllabus. Then we have information technology, which is 20%, information security, which is 25%, and which has only 1 unit. And then we have financial management, which covers 20%. So overall, this make it up to 100%. Just to have a quick review, in Unit 1 we talk about some of the definitions related to strategic management, and then we discuss that how different businesses position themselves to achieve their strategic goals, how they set their strategic goals. There were certain theories that we have discussed. Then in Unit 2, which is about organizational behavior, we talk about different. First of all, I've explained that this is a huge, vast topic. If you have been to a university, you might be familiar that business behavior used to be an entire subject. Within that, we have only touched base upon mostly about how we can drive productivity from employees. In that aspect, we discuss about different types of motivational theories. Then in the 3rd unit, we talk about leadership and organizational structure. We have discussed different types of leadership, how you can mold and customize your leadership behavior as per the organizational culture, and sometimes based on your followers. So this is what we have studied in Unit 3. And our today's topic about business processes and data analytics, we will be discussing about what are the key business processes and what is the role of data analytics for internal auditors. In terms of CIA Unit 4, business process and data analytics, we will be discussing about mainly 2 areas of the businesses. One is about business processes, and the other section will be focusing on data analytics. Within the business processes, we will be discussing about 3 mainly areas, which is HR and outsourcing, pricing and supply chain, and the last one is about procurement. In data analytics, we will be discussing about we will be basing upon what is data analytics, how it helps the organization to achieve their goals, and what are the key technologies that we are using for data analytics. To begin with, our first section of Unit 4 is business processes, and within that is HR and outsourcing. Just to give you an idea that every company has an HR department. It might be that they have a different name for HR department. In some companies it is called human capital, in some human resources. So there could be any name, but generally the role of the HR department is to manage the human resources, the supply and demand of human capital of the organization. At the end of the day, it is the people that run the businesses, with the help of IT and with the help of technology as well. So the key role of HR department is to source or to find good resources, human resources for the company. to try to retain the resources by providing them with different perks and benefits, or designing the company lucrative, or the benefits which the employees are getting, also designing the job as well, and then developing those employees if they find that through performance evaluation that there are gaps that needs to be filled in order to achieve maximum productivity from the employees. Then they could either internally provide the training, or they ask the employee to bridge those gaps by motivating them, or giving them incentive by paying their fees and that kind of activity. The HR not only focus on the current human resources, but they also try to foresee that what are the future requirements, whether they would be needing to downsize or upsize the human capital within the companies. There was a time when downsize was a wrong terminology, or taken as a with a negative connotation, but these days, as we know, technology is rapidly growing, and unfortunately the human resources are less and less needed. When I started in the career maybe 15 years back, I remember that bigger organization used to have 10-15 individuals within the internal audit department, and today if you look at, there is hardly 2 or 3, because we have softwares and we have technology, and within the processes we inbuilt a lot of controls, so there is less demand for internal auditors or risk managers as well. Does that mean that our profession is at stake? Not really, because everyone is going through the same process. It's a part of the evolution. It is just that we need a few resources, but a very highly qualified and very skilled resources to manage the internal audit or risk management department. Whenever we talk about the HR department, one of the key critical area of the department or responsibility of the department is to define that what are the jobs that is required by the company, and they make it in a job description. It's a document in which the role and responsibilities are being defined, and they also identify what are the job specification, and what would be the qualification, experience, personality attributes of a person, or technical skills or soft skills that will be required to source that kind of individual would be a good match for that job. So that is generally, if you look at whenever a job is advertised, it has 2 components. One is the job description, what is required, and secondly, what are the attributes or the characteristic or the competence that is required by the company. So these are the 2 critical elements within a job design. In terms of recruitment, one of the key primary thing that all the companies intend to achieve is to eliminate discrimination and avoid any biasness that's might encounter within the HR or recruitment process. To do that, they explicitly mention that anyone is eligible to apply for the job as long as they have the required skills and competence. One more thing which is happening these days because of the rapid technology or changes in the business dynamics, or trying to keep the cost minimum, the companies are hiring individuals with a fixed contract or a temporary contract, or sometimes they outsource their resource requirement to a company. This helps them in terms of either downsizing or upsizing the individuals based on the needs, or based on the projects which they are working on, or the demand within the market. It happened in the IT industry a lot, but it is also happened in manufacturing companies where the production line, the core key laborers, or in hospitality where the waiters are being temporarily hired or managed by the employers based on the needs and requirements. Selection. In terms of selection, the first thing is to define that what is the role for that they need resources, and they have a formal job description and a job specification. Based on this, they advertise the job. Individuals apply for the different roles and they are being evaluated, and those who are relevant to the job they are being requested to either appear in different types of tests or screening processes or interviews. Once that is done, they try to find the best candidate. Best doesn't mean that highly qualified or highly experienced. Best means the one who is suitable for that kind of a job. There might be a possibility that someone is extraordinary, but the job in itself doesn't require that level of expertise, because the salary range are based on the role. So sometime I have seen in my practical life experiences that companies have hired mediocre people than a very smart person, or maybe with someone with a very nice background, just because they do not want to pay extra because the company doesn't have the budget. So these are the inherent limitations of the recruitment, because the HR role is to best fits the needs of the company and find the individual that is willing to accept and to work their optimum within those terms and conditions. And lastly, once that is done, they negotiate and they offer the job to the individual with all the defined contractual terms and condition and salaries and perks. So this is a brief cycle of recruitment within any company or any industry or sector. Apart from the recruitment and selection, there is one more key element within the HR department is about training and development. Initially, what happened at the companies, they evaluate on an ongoing basis or periodically basis all their employees and see that who are performing well and who are lagging behind, and based on that they identify what are the skills or competence that individual needed, and accordingly they plan the training program for them. There are two critical terms within the training is training and development. Training is for the current roles to perform very well, and development is for the future potential roles, or where you want to train someone to become a manager or head of the department in the future as a succession plan for any department. So both needs are identified, and then trainings are being given through different means, which means that it could be on the job training, which means that you are being associated with the senior to learn from them, to mimic their behavior or their skills or competence. Or it could be online, it could be classroom based, it could be offline, which means that you will be sent it to some other training programs, specialized training programs. This happens in some of the key MNCs. These days it is going less and less, because online training is taking place because it's more cheaper and it's more flexible. It doesn't require you travel, and it doesn't cost the company too much, though it is, I really question at times with the online trainings, because sometimes it is not that effective. So companies previously what used to do, even send it to Ivy League colleges and universities, even Harvard, Stanford, for executive programs, and where you learn negotiation skills and other skills. Evaluation and approval. So whenever you are being provided with the training, the company ensure that you grasp the skills. They evaluate you within the training program and post training to see that whether how you are performing now, and this helps them to modify their training approach, and also to ensure that you are getting the benefit of those trainings, because at the end of the day, if it is an employer sponsored, they are paying hefty fee for these trainings, and not only in terms of fee but also in terms of time and resources. They let their employees to work on themselves to be more productive. As we have already discussed about the job design, recruitment and selection, training and development, and one of the other key element of the HR is about performance evaluation and objectives. It happens within the company on an ongoing basis, but generally the informal activity is being done periodically. At times in some companies, the performance of an employee is being evaluated against the objectives or the targets is being set on a monthly basis. Sometimes it happens quarterly, sometimes semi-annually, and sometimes annually. It is beneficial for both employees and the organization, because the employees know that what are their key skills, what are their key strengths and weaknesses, and what are the areas where they have to improve themselves. And for the organization also, because they know that how productive that employee is, what are their behaviors, and in case of promotion and salary increase, they evaluate based on their performance, and based on that what are the things that are good about the employee, and what are the things that needs to be improved. um, Assessment could be in a different form. Behavioral assessment could happen, goal oriented, trade oriented, and employee orientation. But sometimes what happens in the company is that the company blend these kind of assessment within one assessment, and at times they have separate assessments to separate ways of evaluating employees in different types of assessment. Each assessments have their own pros and cons. It is limited to that type of assessment, but to get the best out of everything, you try to evaluate employee in a 360 degree, which means that in different ways. Just to give you a brief intro of what is behavioral in assessment. In behavioral assessment, they give you a case study, and they see that how you behaviorally approach to different issues and tasks and activities. Are you an angry person? Are you a calm person? Do you get excited when a challenge comes, or you get timid, or feel more alert or concerns? What is your anger management? So these are the behavioral aspects which are being assessed in a behavioral oriented assessment. In a goal oriented, they give you an task, let's say a sales target, and they assess whether you were able to achieve your targets or not. In a trait oriented, they want to see that what is your moral compass, what is the level of your integrity, honesty, how effectively you communicate, how you gel with people. So these are the personality characteristic which you carry as a person since childhood, and you keep on improving. So this is where your personality traits are being evaluated. And in terms of employee oriented, they want to see that how good of an employee you are, or you could become to an employer. Here they see your management skills, they see your leadership skill, your how good as a follower you are, how compliant you are to the company's policies and procedures. So these are some of the key traits they want to evaluate. Lastly, these performance assessments basically, when it is being carried out in any organization, these are the documents based, or these are the assessments based on which your salaries, your promotion, your increments, or your potential characteristic to ascertain whether you could be fit for any other job within the company or not is being assessed. And it also helps you to further develop yourself as an professional. We already covered the first part of the first section of this unit, which is the HR. Now we will be discussing about the outsourcing. Many companies outsource some of their supportive functions to third party, because to save money and to bring more efficiency within the company. Every company wants to focus on their core competence, which is basically their competitive edge. Means that they are known, or these are the critical services which they provide. For instance, if a company is into providing web designing and other kind of similar web marketing or these kind of activities, they would not like to hire a full-time lawyer to draft their contracts with the customer or with the clients, and they would rather prefer to go for a law firm or to find a consultant who can work based on the different activity based, and they can give them a fixed fee or variable fee. It will help them to focus on their core competence. At larger scales within the companies, sometimes IT services are being outsourced, sometimes HR and payroll services, sometimes learning and development, so and sometimes recruitment process as well. So there are different services which the companies outsource, so they can focus on the key core activities within the company. Outsourcing can have both a positive aspect and a negative aspect. In positive, we already discussed, but in negative aspect, it could be limiting in terms of it might not be very much tailored to your own organization needs or requirements. So in that aspect, it can be a little bit inconvenient or inflexible because they are providing a standard services to different companies, and you might need a very unique kind of a services. Another thing is the loss of knowledge, because the knowledge base is with the personnel who are coming from the outsourcing company. So it might be that you will always be dependent on these outsourcing companies. The third thing is loss of knowledge could happen. That what if the knowledge is leaked because you have to share your data with them and they work with you hands in hand. So what about the information security? And there might be certain legal complication as well. There is a misconception that whenever we outsource an activity, the responsibility towards that activity or that project is at the it pass on to that third party, but it isn't the case. The responsibility lies with the management, so they have to ensure that they have proper process controls, and they ensure that there is a continuous evaluation of those vendors or consultants, that they should be providing the kind of services that we needed. We have a tons to evaluate their performance, but at the end of the day, it is our job, our responsibility to ensure that the services are up to the level. And if tomorrow anything goes wrong, we would be accountable for not ensuring that we have in-house proper controls over those activities. So here we are with our second section within the business processes, which is about pricing and supply chain. In the previous one, we have discussed about the HR and the outsourcing one. Pricing is one of the very crucial element within any company, because this is how you set your margins and you ensure that you compete and thrive within the within that ecosystem or in the market. It is used for profit maximization. Sometimes you want to reflect your product or services as a brand leader, so leadership within that market. Sometimes you want to increase your penetration through quantity maximization, and sometimes it is just for the purpose of survival, because there is fierce competition within the company and you want to survive, and that's how you set your prices to ensure that you achieve the desired results. There are different pricing strategy within the company. One is, the most famous is the skimming one, and the other one is penetration one. Each strategy works well within a given context, so there is no good and bad. You have to assess your context, you have to assess your industry and sector and the product and services which you are providing. In the skimming one, just to give you an example, let's say a pharma company has done a lot of investment in terms of R&D to come up with a medicine that cures certain kind of disease. So they will trademark their secret and they will try to take the license for that, and they will set a very higher price to charge initially for a fixed term, maybe 5 years or 10 years, which happened in the case of paracetamol when it was initially introduced to the market, and there was no compete what you call terms and condition within the market, that no one should be copying their recipe. Reason being, because the R&D happens a lot of the time, and not every R&D yield into a successful outcome. So this is called skimming, where they set a higher price in the start, so they take their benefit and all the costs they recover, and then it become a market competitive product where everyone can compete. It also happens in the phones when you see when the new either phones or cars when a new model is introduced, it is set at a higher price, and as it get old, the prices reduce. Penetration, on the other hand, is a different strategy where you just want to enter in the market and have a larger um, pie of the entire market, larger share of the entire market. And to do that, sometimes you play with the pricing. For instance, if that services or product is being provided at a higher prices, so what you do, you reduce your prices to take a major market share, and once you have, then you compete in terms of increasing the price because you already have the market share, or to manipulate, to work with other manipulative techniques, marketing techniques in a positive way. There are some alternative pricing strategies. Sometimes you have to compete in terms of cost. Cost could be at a both way higher or lower. If you want to introduce a very premium or very luxury item, so you want to set a higher premium price, so let the people at a certain class feel that they are entitled, or that gives them a sense of achievement when they buy that product, and a differentiation within the society that they are not buying something mediocre. Or sometimes you just put it at a very cheap prices so you can increase your quantity and economy market share. Demand oriented is where you keep the prices flexible. It happens at Amazon when something is at a very high demand, they increase the prices, or also in the ticketing. And when the demand is less, they decrease the prices to ensure that they still achieve their margins, or at times just to cover their fixed cost. Value based pricing is where you sell the utility and the outcome deriving from that product to the consumer, and that's how you ensure that the consumer, whatever they are paying for, they are getting the value of that product. So these are some of the key strategies for setting the price of any product within the company to compete in the market. So in the second section of the business process, pricing in supply chain, we already covered the pricing part. Now we will be discussing about supply chain. What is supply chain? Supply chain is basically how the information, services, or product flow within the company through different channels. Just in case if I'm a customer and I place an order, the company want to ensure that from receiving that order, then till delivering those services, be it in terms of products or services, how it is being managed, how that information is received, work on that information, provide services to the final consumer. So this is a supply chain cycle. It could be for any type of industry or sectors. One of the key critical element in the supply chain is the flow of information, because everything relies on information. And how information flow within the companies these days, it's through ERP system, enterprise resource system, which is computer systems. So generally, if you look at that, when you place an order, most of the time either through telephone or physically visiting, or the third way of communicating with any services or products is through sending an online request. Once that is done, the entire IT system enable us to receive, sort, to ensure that the flow of information goes to the relevant department. So there are different departments involved while ensuring that you receive the final results, and that all happens within the IT environment with the company. What is the benefit of supply chain? Supply chain, especially let's take an example of a company where there's a production line and there is a production supply chain. Whenever the company will receive a customer order, accordingly they want to ensure that the raw material are there, the production capacity is being increased or decreased based on the demand, and the inventory is properly managed, be it a raw material inventory or finished product inventory. To do all that, to do To do all that, two critical components: one is the information flow, and the second is the IT system that ensures that there is there is right quantity of inventory in the stock, that we do not have the risk of getting stock out, or what if we receive an immediate request for something, so there could be a rush orders, and that we should manage our resources accordingly to fulfill those demands. These days, one of the critical competitive edge is the supply chain. The more effective supply chain you have, the more robust and control oriented, the better you will be able to serve the final consumer, and based on their satisfaction and the outcome which they receive in terms of quality and timely receiving the services, they become your repetitive customers. They again and again come to you. As I have mentioned, supply chain coordination is very much important, and the IT system needs to be capable of handling those kind of challenges. We have to remove all the hurdles or obstacles that could lead to ineffective supply chain. In terms of broken IT system, or manual intervention, or lack of controls, or people are not taking care of the controls and overriding controls. So these are the things which we need to fix to ensure that we are competitive enough to serve our clients or customers swiftly and more productively. One of the key critical component of the supply chain management is the distribution and the distribution channel. Distribution is basically that how we manufacture our product, from manufacturing to finally delivering that product to the final customer. It could be a retailer, because you might be just selling as a wholesale item to the retailers, or it could be to the final consumer. In doing that, we have to ensure that how we manage our inventory and how we transfer those products or services to the individual. In terms of physical goods and physical products, we have to ensure that what could be in the means by which we are providing, and those means by which we shall be delivering those products to the consumer is called distribution channel. It could be through heavy trucks, or it could be through flight arrangements to provide the products to the end user, or it could be through sea channel or shipment. So it could be in any form, but we have to ensure that the distribution channel which we take is appropriate to our need and to our customers, and the cost element is being considered, and the efficiency and effectiveness. There could be a lot of middlemen in the distribution channel. Those could be retailers, brokerage, or brokers, consignee, different agents, different smaller companies, outsourcing companies, which help you to distribute your product quickly and swiftly. So there could be a lot of people within the supply chain distribution, and in what your role as a company or as a higher position person within the company is to ensure that there is a free flow of information, and the process is being properly controlled, monitored, efficiencies being evaluated, and all the risk associated with damages in terms of delays, in terms of penalties if we do not provide our services up to the mark, returns, all is being taken care of. So this is our job, to ensure that not only we need to have an efficient supply chain and distribution channel, but also needs to have control, and to evaluate those controls time to time as an auditor, to ensure that those controls are functioning effectively. Distribution channels could be structured in multiple ways within the company. There are different types of distribution structures that the company adopt. Some of the key ones which we will discuss here are conventional systems, where there are different layers within the supply chain distribution. For instance, one company produces, it sells that product to the wholesaler, and the wholesaler sell it to the retailer, and the retailer sell it to the final consumer. In that structure, in a conventional one, generally happens in the different kind of products related to FMCG, fast moving consumer goods. Happens where each intermediator or at each layer, the individual keep their margin and the prices keep on increasing downward. So this is one way of distribution channel which you can which you can opt based on the product or services that you are providing. The other one is vertical system. In vertical system, the company try to own the entire supply chain. I will give you a practical example. For instance, one of our company, in one of the employers where I was working, the company was dealing in a palm oil, edible palm oil. So the company, what they were doing, they had their own proper palm fields. Actually, they have acquired tens of hectares of land where they cultivate the palm trees, and then they have refineries or processing units where they extract from the palm fruit the oil and refine it into final product of edible oil. And then they had the distribution channel where they sell it to that distribution channel to the final consumer or retailer. So this is where the company tries to take the hold of the entire supply chain to increase their profitability, and maybe that happens in a company where there is a fierce competition, so they want to eliminate the competition by taking a slight margin on each layer rather than selling it to someone and they are asking for a hefty fee. The other one is a horizontal system where you make a product and you sell it to multiple distributors, and each distributor, they keep their margin in this. This happens in automobiles where the car manufacturers produces their cars and then they let the different distributors to sell their car. They keep their margins and the distributor keep where they might not necessarily be owning those distribution channels. Then we have a multi-channel system where we combine different channels for our product or services. For instance, we have a distribution channel where we follow the conventional one where we sell it to some individual and then they sell it to the consumer, or we might be directly selling to the consumer at certain part or in certain regions where we have a good distribution warehouses and distribution channels and to the final consumer. Or we might also be opting to sell it through online international deliveries or international couriers. So this is different ways of how you can manage your distribution of a product within a company. In supply chain, another important element is to manage your inventory, and accordingly you plan that how you will, which structure of distribution you want to follow. For instance, in a forward placements, in terms of inventory placements, means that where you want to reach out to the final consumer as quickly as possible. So you try to produce your product and keep it in the warehouse near to the consumer, so whenever they ask, you can swiftly provide either through retail or directly through your warehouse. It happens where it is a very competitive market product, has low price and quickly can be transported to the final consumer. It could be in a fast moving consumer products, soaps, detergents, these kind of products, or in newspapers or perishable products where the life of that product is not that long, for instance fruits and vegetables. Then there is a backward placement inventory approach where you keep the inventory within the company because of the customization and because of the price of that product. It happens where the price is huge and you cannot provide unless you receive an order from the customer. In many countries, I have observed that whenever you place an order for buying a new car, the order goes to the factory, the manufacturers, based on that region, that how many cars they needed, and then they deliver the car maybe after a couple of months. At least in the countries where I have lived, that there was a time lapse between when you place the order and when you receive a brand new car. So that happens in the car manufacturing, and approximately the time period is between 3 to 6 months. Sometime when the distributor, they have readily available cars, they instantly provide, but if they don't, then they place the order and you have a waiting time. It also happens where there is a lot of customization is required, so they ask for different kind of specification, that what are the key elements that you needed, so they can customize the product accordingly to you. So there could be different characteristics or attributes associated with the kind of a product, and based on that you have to decide that whether you want to go with a forward placement of inventory or backward placement of the inventory. We already have discussed the supply chain and the distribution and inventory placements in the previous slides, and now we will be focusing on the procurement. Procurement is very crucial process within any company, because this is how you ensure that you buy the products or the raw materials for your product in a very competitive price and on a timely basis in order to fulfill the demands. The management responsibility is that they should have a proper controls in the procurement process, in the purchasing process of a product, through proper authorization, timeliness in terms of that when we have to place an order, so we do not withhold a bigger inventory for the items, because sometimes it's there is a cost of holding that product, or sometimes you have to provide a feasible environment, or sometimes your cash is just locked because you excessively order. The acceptance that it is timely being delivered, communicated to the supplier, the receipts of the orders, and finally the payments of those goods and services to the vendors. So these are the key critical steps where the controls should be quite stringent within the company as a management responsibility. The auditor responsibility is to evaluate those controls and to ensure that there is no gaps in those controls, that these controls are effectively working throughout the period, and also to ensure that the financial errors are being eliminated within the process by ensuring proper controls are in place. So whatever we intend to buy, we place the same kind of order, we have proper contracts with the suppliers. Whenever the order received, we count, we see the quality, we receive the invoices, we make the payments accordingly. So these are all the controls that we have to ensure as an auditor. The organizational structures needs to be modified based on the products that we are acquiring or the industry trends. Sometimes what happens that there are segregation of duties in order to ensure that no one person have excessive controls to manage the procurement. I will give you an example that where I was auditing a company, and I found that the procurement manager whose salary is not being raised for last 10 years was still very happy and motivated when working within the company. The lifestyle of that individual was very extravagant. So you have to ensure that as an auditor we are being trained to look for red flags that could lead to a potential fraud by that individual. That person has another attribute associated, that he was not happy to delegate enough, especially vendor negotiations and contract placements. The controls was pretty weak because this one person has a full control, and he gives just the laborious task of placing the order in terms of forms and formalities to his juniors. Again, that person also traveled quite often, so that was a big surprise. So when we look at those all the key elements and I review the process, I came to know that person has inbuilt he took the overly control of the entire negotiation, placing and receiving the orders from the customers, and he was a very old employee. He was working for that company for more than 20 years, so he gained the trust of the CEO as well. Based on that initial investigation, we encounter also by inquiring from the subordinates, especially the one who were not happy with him. They informed that he take the kickbacks, he get out of cash for placing certain kind of orders to individual suppliers. And we further investigated through different means and by collecting information and also by asking the employee. We came across that he himself has formed a company in a country where he was a supplier and he was selling certain products by keeping a huge margin and to the company, and then being a procurement manager, he take those orders or accept those orders because there was no as such supervision. And he was doing this for many years, and he has established his own supply chain to provide certain kind of services. And you can imagine that that person later on, when the formal legal investigation happens, we came to know that he had 3 different companies under his wife and his mother-in-law and one more acquaintance, which he was procuring products for the company with a huge margins keeping in between, and the company needs those products in millions. So we take the legal course and we did all the formalities. But just to give you an idea that when you do not segregate the role of different procurement processes, that could lead to this kind of risk within the company or consequences within the company. Not all the companies have enough resources to have an individuals only for authorization, recording, or custody of the product. Sometimes the organization is very small and one person is doing. In that case, we need to have supervisions. We need to have a surprise audit, regular audit, to ensure that nothing is going wrong. So these are some of the key critical elements associated in terms of management responsibility towards having efficient controls in the procurement process or purchasing process. Auditor responsibility to evaluate those controls, and organization structure needs to be formed in a way that there is less incentive for a fraudster to carry out any fraud in the procurement process. As we have already mentioned, within the procurement process in any company, there are different individuals or sometimes departments or subunits activities that is being performed to fulfill one transactions, such as who will place the order, the authorization of the purchases, the acceptance of the goods, maintaining the inventory records that we do not excessively or we are stock out, ensuring that all the orders are pre-numbered, they are all the financial records are being maintained. So these are the key critical activities which is performed by different individuals. So each individual is responsible for their area of responsibility to ensure that the proper controls are being followed within that processes and are working effectively. Controls could be at different level within a procurement process. As I've mentioned, that from the starting the order till placing the order till receiving the material, then utilizing the material, all needs to have a proper control. Some of the basic controls which we auditor usually look for, that all the purchase orders are being all the orders are being placed to the authorized suppliers. There are proper contracts with those suppliers. The prices are competitive, and whatever we required, we only place that quantity of the order. We ensure that the orders are being received properly. All the documents which are being used in terms of placing the purchase order is pre-numbered, so if there is any missing document, we can track that what happened to those. All the purchase orders are being properly closed when the orders are received and the invoices are raised. All the invoices which are being sent to the customers is of the real quantity which we receive and the real quality of the product and as per the agreed prices. And if there are discounts, we can also look into that. And to avoid the penalties of late payments, we ensure that effectively we manage and we make online whatever the mode of the payment, but we make it promptly or as per our working capital. So these are the controls which needs to be in place in any procurement process within an organization. So up till here, we have covered the first section of the entire unit, which was about business processes. And within the business processes, we have covered the HR process, the outsourcing activity. Then we talk about the pricing and different pricing strategies. Then we talk about the distribution channels, the supply chain, the distribution channels, different types of distribution channels, the inventory placement forward or backward. And then we talk about the procurement processes and what are the key role and responsibility, and what are the key controls that needs to be within the procurement process. Now we will be discussing about the second half of the unit 4, which is about the data analytics. Data analytics you can have an inbuilt within the business processes, or it could be a separate activity. The purpose of doing data analysis within the company is to get the meaningful information out of the data, to look into different patterns and then make a wise decision about any business activity or business problems. So just to have a clear or easy definition, the process of data analytics is about gathering and checking the data to find a useful, meaningful information that helps in decision making. There are different tools that we use for data analysis, and we try to look for numbers, sometimes pictures, sometimes different patterns, sometimes different trends, to ensure that we make an informed decision about different business activities. For instance, if you want to launch a new product, so you want to gather the consumer, you carry out consumer surveys, and based on that you do the data analysis, that what are the gaps within that market that we can fulfill. Or just to improve your own product, you ask for customer satisfaction surveys. Sometimes what happened that you are a supplier and you receive multiple orders and there are fluctuations within the order, or there are a certain kind of requests to modify the product in a certain way. So based on all that information, you come up with a new product or services to serve your customer more effectively. Data analytics is an medium or an approach that is being used by different institution, be it profit or non-profit, governments, authorities, or businesses. So it is not confined to only businesses, but non-for-profit businesses as well as government authorities, because everyone is being flooded these days with data. And to assess that data, to take out the meaningful trends and insight within that data, and to make a decision on that data could be required by any stakeholder. There are 5 stages to data analytics or data analysis. That initially you identify what is the objective that you want to achieve by looking into a data. It could be that you want a consumer to a certain consumer behavior, or you want to assess certain kind of anomalies within the production systems, or you want to make it your system more efficient or your services more efficient. So first of all, the initial thing with it you have to do as a starting point in a data analysis is to identify the objectives. Once that is done, then you look for the data sources, that from where you want to get the information from that data. It could be internal, it could be external, it could be a raw data, it could be a refined data, it could be provided by freely, or it could be that you have to pay to get that data. Once you identify the source and you source or you acquire the data, then you clean the data based on your needs, because not all data is structured means that they are very of high quality. Sometimes you have to look into the data and extract the key attributes of the data in order to perform certain kind of analysis or trend analysis on the data. For instance, if you want to have a demographic information of that, at what age of people are buying which kind of let's say chocolates, so you have to have that in the data which you needed is about different age groups and what is their consumer behavior and what are the taste or different flavors they want to eat. So whenever you go and try to acquire that information, sometimes you might have the age but you might not have the flavor of the chocolates which they eat. Sometimes the frequency might not be there, so you just look for the quality data where you can have a meaningful trend analysis of that information. So it is called cleaning the data and then analyzing the data. Then once you clean the data, now all the information in different geographies you have in a structured manner, that there are 5 attributes of elements that I'm looking for in each region about that specific data. And then you compare different regions or different products or different services to ensure that you come out with a meaningful insight in that data or a trend based on which you can make a decision. So these are the 5 stages: identifying the objectives, obtaining the relevant data, cleaning, analyzing the data, and then using that, applying different models, and then communicating the results for making proper decision making. There is a very famous term these days which is being used is big data. What is big data? Big data is nothing but the source or the type of the data which are humongous. What happened these days that with the advent of internet and huge processing power, huge storage capacity, and a lot of people spending a lot of time online and all the devices are being connected, there is a huge amount of data which is being stored in different servers. Now to get the meaningful information out of that data is a big challenge, because these days the data is growing at a astronomical pattern or astronomical manner within the world. So to take that information from different sources, be it social media, be it your own internal processes, be it from a third party, and then structuring it and cleaning it and analyzing, that is where the key challenge falls. And just to sum it up, the big data is basically all the data, be it structured or unstructured or semi-structured, wherever there is that data, and it is huge in quantity, we give the term big data. And we take that big data and then we try to look for the need of that what we want to drive of that data, and accordingly we try to find different meaning out of that data and apply those meanings to make our rightful decisions. There are 4 or 5 attributes associated with big data on which the business are dependent on to make a good decision, to take out the patterns or insight within the data. The first one is the volume. Big data are generally humongous and they are huge in quantity, and because that volume is collected over the time and from multiple sources. Variety, there are different types of data in a big data. It could be structured, semi-structured, or unstructured, which we already discussed what does mean by structured and unstructured. Then velocity, about the speed at what the data is being generated. For instance, there could be certain online transactions that is being happening, or consumer behaviors is being monitored online through social media. So at what level and what is the speed of the data that is being generated associated with that business activity. Veracity, where the quality and the reliability of data is very much important, where we focus on that the sources from where we are getting or acquiring those data is being reliable, the numbers are accurate, the information is giving accurate, because there is a lot of fake data, bogus data, or manipulative data just to drive certain political advantages or to misguide others. So we need to verify the data quality, which is very much important in terms of big data. The fifth is could be referred to value by using different computational tools, ID tools, to look into different graphs and charts and see different patterns, and to drive that value for decision making is very much important in the big data. So looking at the big data, where the companies are dependent on 5 attributes of the big data. One is the volume, variety, different type of structures, velocity, speed, veracity, the quality, and the fifth is the value. So these are the key critical elements which are associated with the big data. Lastly, to discuss about some of the key technologies that are associated with data analytics that make our life easy. One is the data management. This is not a technology. It means that overall our information system should be good enough to manage the data whenever it is being produced, in terms of receiving that information, sorting that information, structuring that information, and recording and letting that information to be available when it is required. The second thing is data mining. Data mining is where we have set of information in our warehouses or at our servers, where we retrieve that information and try to find a meaningful outcome of that information. There are different tools that enable us to dig down in a big data and take out some meaningful information through data mining. Hoops or Hadoop softwares are basically, their work is whenever we have a huge amount of data and we do not have the internal capacity, or it is more expensive to have a very supercomputer to process that information. So what Hadoop software does, that it distributes that data into different cluster of computers. It distributes on different computers, and it manages and through softwares the entire activity. So it breaks down that information in a smaller chunks. It distributes it to different computers and manage that activities, and all the computers, they perform those activities on a smaller data, and then it is being combined in a report form and then give it to you in the form of graphs or visualization. In this, what help us is that we do not have to incur a lot of amount on increasing the capacity, data processing capacity, or buying very expensive big computers to process that humongous data. In memory analytics is where we in the computer, where the software uses the RAM or the memory of the computer to get the best deal and to get the information quickly processed and give you the results. Predictive analysis software helps you to, based on the historical data, to give you some analytical view of that, how things might happen in the future. For instance, that if we are increasing by 5%, our growth is by 5%, so what are the raw materials required? How, or if the inflation is increasing by 5%, what would be the cost that we have to incur for sourcing different products? So predictive is more of based on the historical trends. They give us the projection of that, how our business will look like or activity will be performed and will reflect in the future. The last one is text mining. It just dig down all the text that is being provided to them and try to identify different relationships and in different topics and give you the meaningful results. Text mining could be through email surfing as well, where the software look for certain red flags information to ensure that there is no confidential information is being leaked out to unauthorized individual by the company official emails, or if there is certain key critical terms that is being used where we could lose our competitive edge in terms of pricing, in terms of codes. So that could be one of the things that that helps that software to identify such patterns. So these are some of the technologies that we can use in data analytics to get the insight of the data to make a better decision about the different business activities. So here we are at the end of the entire unit discussion. We have discussed initially that there are basically the entire unit 4 can be divided into two sections. One is the business processes, the other is data analytics. Within the business processes, we discuss mainly in three sections. The first one is HR and outsourcing, then supply chain and distribution, and the third one was about procurement. And the last section, the other part was data analytics. We have been touched base upon certain key elements from the auditor perspective, from the management perspective, and here is the end of the entire unit 4. Thank you for being patient, as I always keep on telling you that I'm trying, but unfortunately due to so many challenging work and time constraints and due to family commitments, I'm unable to publish the videos on a weekly basis, though which I committed, but I'm still trying as long as I'm working on it and there is a continuation. So this is again a silver lining, and just give me I'm looking for your praise and your blessings in terms of that you pray for me, for my family, and I also pray for you that whatever you are doing in life, in career, in your personal life, may you achieve more, and hopefully that you pass your exam in the first attempt. So remember me in your prayers. If you believe that it is helping you, subscribe to the channel for similar topics, and also share the news with the others, those who are intending to prepare for the CIA, and looking forward to see you again in the next video.